since both my parents worked full-time. I attended daycare from a young age and grew up watching them work tirelessly every day, inspired by their dedication. I dreamed of becoming a successful career woman, an independent person who could stand on her own without relying on anyone else. Fueled by this ambition and my naturally strong personality, I became highly competitive as a child. If I fell during a race in PE class, I would get back up without crying, determined to finish strong. If I didn't score at the top of my class on a test, I'd stay up late studying until I achieved better results. Failure was never an option for me. You don't always have to be number one, Sarah, my parents would say. We just want you to shine as yourself. We're proud of your hard work. But remember, it's important to lean on your family too. We're here to support you. I carried that advice with me as I entered a prestigious high school known for its rigorous academic standards. Passing the entrance exam with top scores was a milestone, and it was there that I first met Mark, someone who would eventually change my life. Mark had the highest grades in the entrance exam and delivered the freshman speech at the opening ceremony. "I've always worked hard and never feared failure," he said during his speech. "It's okay not to be number one. I believe failure is a valuable experience." Those words resonated deeply with me, reminding me of my father's similar encouragements. I felt an instant connection to Mark. As fate would have it, we were placed in the same advanced class, a group of the top students in the school. Despite the competitive environment, Mark consistently outperformed everyone. As we grew closer, Mark shared stories of his upbringing. "I've never placed second in academics or sports," he said, his tone a mix of pride and humility. "My mom was strict, but I'm grateful. It made me capable of handling almost anything." Meeting his mother at the entrance ceremony, I understood where his drive came from. She exuded strength and sophistication, and her influence was evident in Mark's achievements. Over our 3 years of high school together, Mark excelled at everything. He was a class leader, the anchor for our relay team, the choir competition conductor, and always topped the exams. Though I admired him deeply, and had a quiet crush, I never acted on my feelings. He seemed out of reach, a level of perfection I could only aspire to. After high school, I focused on my own goals, determined to carve out a path of success. I faced multiple job rejections, but I never gave up. Eventually, I landed a position at a top company, a prestigious opportunity, even though it was my fifth choice. This marked my first step toward my childhood dream of becoming a career woman. As one of the few women hired for a general position at the time, I worked tirelessly. My days were a blur of travel, running in heels I wasn't yet used to, and striving for both financial and emotional independence. While I occasionally exchanged emails with my parents, I avoided burdening them with my struggles. I knew they were aging, and I wanted to reassure them that I could handle things on my own. Yet, as I approached 30, I couldn't help but feel unsettled watching my friends settle down and start families. When an invitation to my high school reunion arrived, I decided to step away from my work-focused life for a night and attend. Seeing my old classmates was both surreal and heartwarming. Amid the laughter and reminiscing, I heard a familiar voice. "Sarah, is that you? Wow, you look amazing." "Mark," I turned to see him, looking just as sharp as I remembered. "It's been so long, you haven't aged a bit." We fell into easy conversation, catching up on the years we had missed. Mark was now a top salesman at a multinational company, a dream role I had once aspired to myself. "I just won first place in the company's young sales division," he shared with a modest smile. "They even held an award ceremony for me." Mark still carried the aura of an elite achiever, but he was more laid back than I remembered. His suit fit him perfectly, and I couldn't help but admire the man he had become. As we talked, I told him about my own career and how hard I had been working. That night, our connection rekindled, and soon after, we began dating. Although our busy schedules limited how much time we could spend together, I was happier than I had been in years. Slowly, I began to consider that life might be more than just work. Perhaps it was time to build something lasting, a home, a family, a future beyond my career. On our 1-year anniversary, Mark proposed, and I said yes. After more than a decade, we were finally coming together. At 30, marriage felt like a significant milestone, filling me with both joy and uncertainty. My demanding job required me to travel frequently, and I faced a difficult choice: should I request a transfer, stay in my current role, or even consider a career change? Mark, ever supportive, reminded me how much I loved my work. I trusted that Mark would support whatever decision I made, though I carried mixed feelings as I went to meet his mother, Amy. Since Mark's father had passed away a few years earlier, it was just her now. Amy had always seemed strict, but when I saw her again, She looked even thinner and more severe than I remembered. "So, you're Sarah," she said, her eyes assessing me. "I hear you were Mark's classmate in high school. Graduating from that school means you must be quite smart." "I'm not sure about smart," I replied nervously, "but I work hard. I'm at a large company in a position not typically held by women. I'm currently leading a major project." As I continued explaining myself, Amy suddenly smiled. That's enough. I can see you're very capable." I felt a wave of relief, thinking I'd earned her approval, but then she added, "You know, I don't need a career woman. A woman's job is to take care of the home, send her husband off with a smile, have a warm meal ready when he returns, and raise the children properly." That's what I did, and it's what I expect from you. Her words left me stunned. Mark had never mentioned any of this. "She's right," Mark said casually. "I'll make the money, you don't need to work." Although being a successful, independent woman had been my childhood dream, I couldn't deny that I was physically and mentally exhausted from the demands of my job. Amy pressed on. "A woman's happiness is in supporting her husband. If you keep working, people might think Mark can't support his family." I looked to Mark for support, but he just nodded in agreement with his mother. It shocked me. I thought times had changed, that people no longer saw working wives as a reflection on their husbands. "But I'm not very good at housework," I protested weakly. "I've focused on my career, so I might need some help." "That's concerning," Amy said, frowning, "but I can teach you. After all, we'll be living together." "Living together?" I asked, startled. Mark had never mentioned this. "Yes," Amy said matter-of-factly. "This house is too big for me alone. There's plenty of space for you, Mark, and any future grandkids. Why waste money on a separate home?" I felt overwhelmed and trapped by her expectations. Just as I was trying to process it all, Mark spoke again. "I'm not the kind of guy who needs his wife to work," he said. "I make more than enough to support us. Besides, you're so talented that if you ever want to go back to work, I'm sure you'll find something quickly." His confidence in my abilities felt like a small consolation. I decided to give their way a try and resigned from my job. My colleagues were surprised and tried to convince me to stay, but they also told me I was welcome back anytime if I changed my mind. Their encouragement gave me a sense of security as I left the workforce. The next few months were spent learning from Amy. She was strict, but after years of working in a tough, male-dominated environment, her sternness didn't faze me. Not long after, I found out I was pregnant. When our daughter Lily was born, Mark was overjoyed, and to my surprise, Amy doted on Lily. "Lily is just the cutest, isn't she?" Amy would coo, her affection heartwarming but fleeting. Her demands on me increased. "I'll take care of Lily, you focus on the housework," she'd say. "We're running low on supplies, can you do the shopping?" Dragging my postpartum body around to keep up with the housework was exhausting, but having Amy care for Lily was helpful. Mark was rarely home, busy with work, so I appreciated the support, even if it came with constant demands. Amy's generosity extended only to Lily and Mark. She made sure Lily had the best of everything but never offered me so much as a kind word. Mark's career soared as he climbed the ranks at his company, seemingly invincible, until he wasn't. One evening, when Lily was in upper elementary school, Mark came home looking pale and defeated. "Mark, what's wrong?" I asked, concerned. He slumped into a chair and buried his face in his hands. "It's over," he said. "I made a huge mistake at work. The client was furious, my boss berated me, and even my juniors pitied me. I couldn't take it, so I quit." I stared at him in disbelief. "You quit? Over one mistake? Lily's about to start private middle school, we need that income." Even Amy, usually unflappable, looked distressed. "Can't you go back and apologize? Fix things?" she asked. "No," Mark said firmly, "I can't show my face there again. Everyone thinks I'm a failure." Mark had never faced failure before, and now he was completely unraveling. He locked himself in his room, leaving me to pick up the pieces. "Sarah," Amy said sharply, "you need to go out and work." "But you always said a woman's job is to stay home," I protested. Amy's face hardened. "The inheritance is gone. Mark's probably spent most of your savings too. We have no choice." Stunned, I realized how little I'd known about our financial situation. There was no time to dwell on it. I reached out to my old company, relying on my career experience and determination, and was fortunate to be rehired. I threw myself into work, becoming the family's breadwinner. Though the transition was overwhelming, we stabilized financially. Lily attended private school, and I supported Amy and Mark. Mark remained distant, his bitterness showing in his silence and occasional barbs. I wanted to urge him to rebuild his life, but held back, focusing instead on keeping our family afloat. Amy, for her part, returned to her old ways, showing little gratitude and worrying only about Mark's well-being. Meanwhile, Mark began withdrawing more, taking money from our accounts and wandering aimlessly. Looking back, I couldn't help but wonder how things had spiraled so far. I realized I should have left or confronted Mark long ago, but I couldn't bring myself to abandon the man who had once supported me. While I worked tirelessly, Mark wasted his days in idleness. Lily, now old enough to understand, watched her father with a mix of sadness and disdain, and it was clear Mark sensed her disappointment. The tension at home was suffocating. When Lily was in middle school, Mark finally left us. He left a note: "You'll be fine without me. I found someone who needs me." I was stunned. Amy, in her grief, lashed out at me. "This is your fault. You drove him away. I never want to see you or Lily again." She even tried to evict us. "Wait, how will you manage without me?" I asked, bewildered. "Don't underestimate me. I don't need you," she snapped. And so, Lily and I packed our things and left the house. By then, Lily was mature enough to help with household chores while I focused on my career. We were busy, but we found happiness in our small but peaceful life. I didn't file for divorce immediately since I had no idea where Mark was. After 7 years of no contact, he was legally declared dead, which simplified the process. 10 years passed. Lily graduated from university and started her career, becoming a strong, successful woman. I was proud of her, and of myself, for navigating the hardships we faced. I was dating Tom, a kind and dependable man, and we lived together in a cozy home. Life felt complete. Then, one day, I received a call from an unknown number. Thinking it might be work-related, I answered. "Sarah, it's me. I had a hard time finding your number," the voice said. It was Mark. "What do you want?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I'm in trouble. Please help me. We're still family, right? It's your duty to help your husband." The nerve of him. "You abandoned us for 10 years. How dare you call now? We're not family anymore. Don't contact me again." I hung up, furious and shaken. I didn't tell Tom about the call and tried to move on, but a few days later, I returned home early to find shadows near my front door. Fearing it was an intruder, I approached cautiously. It was Mark and Amy. "Finally, you're home. We've been waiting," Mark said, looking desperate. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. "Please, Sarah, we've had our differences, but we're still family. I need your help." Mark explained that after leaving me, he had moved in with a younger woman named Emily, who needed him. However, their life quickly spiraled out of control. Mark worked low-paying jobs to maintain a facade of success, borrowing heavily to impress Emily. Amy, who had tracked Mark down, moved in with him, only to find herself living in poverty. "I'm drowning in debt. We're still married. Sarah, let's start over. You're doing well, right?" Mark pleaded. Before I could respond, Lily arrived home. "What's going on here?" she asked. Mark turned to her, his face softening. "Lily, you've grown so much. You look just like me. We're family." Lily's voice was firm. "No, we're not. Mom and I have been fine without you." Mark tried to argue, claiming we were still married, but Lily stopped him. "Mom filed for divorce years ago. You were legally declared dead after 7 years of no contact." Mark and Amy were stunned. "But that's impossible. You can't do that without my permission," Mark stammered. "Of course, she could. My stepdad, Tom, is a lawyer, and he handled everything," Lily said. Mark's face turned pale, desperate. He tried to defend himself. "I didn't mean for things to get this bad. Emily needed me." I smiled grimly. "Emily? Did you ever learn her last name?" Mark shook his head. "No, she said she didn't like sharing personal details. Her last name is Stone. She's married to your former boss, Mr. Stone." Mark's face drained of color as I explained. Emily had used him for years, while her husband remained unaware of her lavish spending. Until recently, Mr. Stone had hired a private investigator, uncovering everything. Just then, Tom arrived home. "What's going on here, Mark? If you're here to cause trouble, leave now. This is private property." Defeated, Mark and Amy left. Not long after, Mark faced legal consequences for his actions. Mr. Stone divorced Emily, and their lives were shattered. As for me, I had finally achieved the life I always dreamed of. Lily had grown into a strong, independent woman, and I knew she would never settle for less than she deserved. Tom and I chose not to marry, finding happiness in our partnership without legal formalities. I had overcome every obstacle and emerged stronger, and I hoped Lily would always remember to chase her dreams and never let anyone hold her back.